Is it? Refresh your page.
It still has the. When I see your logo, it says live.
Okay. You see me?
Did not see your logo. Looks like the chat is working.
Are people doing?
There you are.
What does it look like? Hello from Holland. Can you guys hear me? Anyone say anything? Wow. Awesome. This is really creepy. So if I keep looking over here, that's where my wife is sitting. She didn't want to be on camera, but she will be doing all the typing and answering of questions.
Hey, you promised.
It's on focus. So that's where she is.
The audio is a bit high.
Okay. So it looks like. How's that? Is that a little bit better? I turned it down a bit. Let me know if I can go down a little bit more. If you want. Test, test.
Germany.
Germany. Holy cow. This is crazy. What?
The delay is funny.
Oh.
All right, starting to get questions.
Oh, what's the question?
All right, our first question is from Sonic Mondai.
Mongo?
First question, have you started the camera stand project?
I have not. So you can see it here in the background. Let me know if you can't hear anything. So here it is. I was going to start doing something with it. I'll be right back. So I actually have these ball screws. I have like 4 of these that I actually got from someone. And I was thinking about using these kind of on the, I guess, x-axis here. I was going to attach them like that and do some kind of motorized thing. But as you can kind of tell, this is very heavy and this is probably overkill. So I might actually end up doing something a little bit easier. What I wanted to do is there's a bunch of Acme screws. So there's normal screw thread, then there's Acme thread, and then there's ball screws. This is a ball screw, and this is way overkill. I was looking into getting some cheap lead screws, so Acme screws, and putting it on this because I think that would be fine. There's not a lot of weight to moving this. Doing the Z-axis is going to be a little bit trickier, but I just don't really know what I want to do with it yet. I also need to probably grind this down and sand it because it's a little jerky at times. So yeah, I just haven't really started that yet.
All right, next question.
Oh.
From Nick Pudding. Is the current state of your workshop considered clean, dirty, or in between?
Good question. This is considered absolutely trashed for me right now. Let me see if I can do this. I'm going to grab the camera and just kind of give you a view of the workshop. This is actually really, really messy. I just got back from Robo Games, Motorama 2 weeks ago, and I haven't really had a chance to clean up. So I'm going to try and make you guys not throw up. So a quick kind of tour. Here is my main workbench. That's where the laser sits. You've got the lathe over there. Here's kind of my main computer bench. There is the infinity monitor. So yeah, this is kind of just where I do most of my computering out here. And then I have some of my electronic soldering bench supplies, stuff like that. Here, as you can see, I'm actually working on the Stratasys. I've got the Stratasys back there, all wired up to the smoothie board. And as you can see here, I was actually testing the extruder, and I've actually got the extruder extruding filament. But this is what this workbench looks like. And then if we go over here, I've got my other 2 workbenches. Normally these are empty. As you can see, they are very far from empty, and they're just completely full, and I have a bunch of stuff over there. This is extremely messy for me right now. And if you look at the mill, you might be able to kind of see it. The mill is actually full. Ooh, I have more room. So that's about as far as I go. The mill is actually completely full up to the table with shavings right now. So this is really, really messy for me. There we go. Oh, the topic can. Sorry.
We have a question from damage.cc. Any suggestions on doing a lightweight, economical BattleBot competition for the engineering team for work team building activities? Any resources, templates worth checking out? That's kind of a broad question.
Yeah. So for damage CC, my question is this: is it a sportsman class or kinetic energy? That's kind of a big difference. So yeah, let me know if you're doing a sportsman, low kinetic energy, or full kinetic energy, because that answer will differ quite a bit depending on what you're doing.
Thank you for answering the question. Can you train your working projects? Next question from Jen 20. Did you go 12 volt or 24 volt on the smoothie board?
I screwed up and went 12 volt. So let's see if I can do this. I can just move the monitor here. Cool. Nice. So this is the mess that is the smoothie board. So for the motors, I'm actually using a 48 volt supply. So this actually goes over here into the Gecko. So that's 48 volts. So all the motors run at 48 for speed and torque and power and all that. The main control is actually a 12 volt. I should have done 24 volt. I went with 12 because I just kind of screwed up, I guess. But if you go with 24 volt, you get the advantage of using much higher power heater cartridges, because a 24 volt heater cartridge for the same amount of power, like a 40 amp, is going to be half the current draw as a 12. So I really should have done 24 because then I would have been carrying half the current through all the heater cartridge wires. But I ended up going with 12, and it might be okay. But I might have to run, like if I want to do a volcano or something, I might actually have to do 2 heater cartridges at 12 volts because I'd be pushing way too much current otherwise.
Screw Up says, hi, have you tried building a 150 gram combat robot? Not kidding. Is that right?
Yeah. Wait, flea or fairy? Fairy weight.
You said 150 grams.
Yeah, 150 grams is, what is that? 150 grams is either a flea weight or a fairy weight in the US or a UK ant weight. I haven't. One of my supporters, David Small, who I don't know if he's on the channel right now. David Small he did Gimli at Motorama, and that's a really nice flea weight or fairy weight, 150 gram. I don't want to do anything that small because I feel like it'd be really frustrating to build something that tiny. And although they're really cool and can do some damage, I'm kind of really sold on the heavier stuff that is, well, more crippling and depressing, because it's just the damage is much cooler. So I probably won't go any smaller, and I might actually just do Beetles and up from now on. because of that.
So I have a response from Damage CC.
Okay.
He said, I would say low kinetic energy for safety, but he said he really doesn't know the difference.
Okay, so for damage, damage CC, so sportsman is low kinetic energy. You can still do flippers. You still have a lot of options in there, but go to Spark, SPARC .tools. Kim can probably put that thing. SPARC.tools. Spark Tools has a really good document that outlines the weapon classes and stuff like that. And a sportsman class is basically going to be very limited wedges, so you can't have a big wedge on it. And if you do, it has to be a flipper. So limited wedge, limited kinetic energy. I think it's topped out at 12 miles an hour tip speed, which is really, really, really low. And a couple other things. So that's sportsman. Then there's just normal, and then there's low kinetic energy, which is a little bit more rare. And low kinetic energy says you just can't store a bunch of kinetic energy in a weapon like a spinning disc. What I would recommend if you're not going to do a kinetic energy is what I've always wanted to do is do a drum bot, so a traditional drum spinning robot, but instead you use something like Coulson's or Banebot wheels and have that as your spinning drum. So instead of having a tooth hit something, you actually have the rubber that hits, and you essentially create like a flipping robot because you have a big drum of spinning rubber, and that flips the other robot up, but you're not really, into it for damage. So that's an idea that you could do.
Generic name says, out of all of your projects, which one is your favorite?
Oh. I have to say, maybe it's because my wife is typing and moderating everything, but I would have to say the NCWP. Actually, I'll send you, if Google SparkFun NCWP and put in a link. NCWP was a non-crappy wedding present, and it was a reverse geocaching box that I gave to Kim on our wedding day. And it was kind of a geocache thing to where it had RFID clues and GPS clues, and it kind of took us around the state of Colorado and eventually gave her the code to open up a box so that she could get her wedding ring out of it. So that was kind of my favorite project. A number two would definitely be crippling depression.
All right, Riptide Robotics says, hi Rob, love your builds. With the combat robots, what's usually your inspiration for design?
Oh man, I'd say my inspiration is whatever. I watch a lot of YouTube combat videos and just kind of whatever I'm seeing. Like crippling depression was Rumham. If anyone's familiar with the 3-pound beetle weight from Luke here in Colorado, Rumham was totally the inspiration for crippling depression, which is funny because he was inspired by Kamikaze. So it's kind of a weird circle. But I don't know, I see a robot and I'm like, that's really cool, and I want to do something like that. So it's just kind of a culmination of a lot of different things. Like I really liked Big Ripto, I really liked Overhaul. There's a lot of other robots I liked, but I wanted to do something kind of a little bit different. So I saw Rumham and I'm like, that needs to happen in a 30-pounder.
Shout out to Luke.
Oh yeah, shout out to Luke. Luke's actually coming over tomorrow, and I'm going to be machining the weapon blades on Rumham, so neat.
Riptide Robotics also says, also 250-pound crippling depression for Series 3.
I would absolutely love to do a 250-pound crippling depression. It would be ridiculous. Although I want, for every weight class, I want to do something different. So I don't know why I'm picking this up, but so, Cuddles was a 1 pound, and I had Kamikaze of the 3 pound, and then Crippling Depression is a 30 pound, and they're all very, very different designs. So if I was going to do a 250 pound, it would be something completely different. I don't know what exactly that would be, but I'd want to try something completely different for 250. So as much as I would love to scale it up, I want to try different designs for every weight class. Oh, where's the chat?
Warner asked a question. Sorry if I butchered this. Have you seen the O-Drive servo motor driver? Uses encoder plus brushless motor to create a precise, fast, and torque-controlled servo for cheap.
I have. I looked at that. I saw that. I forgot why I was looking at that, but that one actually looks really, really cool. I can't remember if I was looking at that for 3D printer or if I was looking at that for something else, but that actually looks really, really neat. I was wanting to get one to play around with, but I have just way too many things to play around with right now, so I just haven't gotten one to play around with yet.
Follow up on the ferry weight question.
Yeah.
He says, okay, I've been fighting with ferry weights or UK amp weights, whichever you want to call it, and I'm hopefully going to an event. Do you have any tips at the event I can keep in mind?
Oh, good call. Yeah, I want to do a video that's, what to expect at the event. So I guess the quick question is, have you been to an event yet? Answer that, and then I'll kind of direct that question based on if you've ever gone to an event or not.
Matthew Warner says, also ever considered automating some of the robot control, automated lock-on, etc., which I know you were interested in.
Wait, what? Automated lock? Yes. Yes. So Matthew Warner, yes. I was just having this talk with my wife the other day. We were kind of talking about robot combat as awesome for marriage. I really think we're going to hit a point to where batteries are just amazing. Everyone's using, amazing materials. 3D printing out of metal is going to become even better. And eventually you're going to get to an arms race to where everything is so powerful that you actually have to do automation. So I am kind of playing with a couple ideas for some new robots. I'm not going to say anything more yet until I get further down the path, but my next robot, not crippling depression version 3, but whatever next robot I build will absolutely have at the very least an Arduino with some sensors in it. And version 3 crippling depression is going to have full telemetry this time for data feedback. So absolutely, my next robots are all going to have some sort of autonomous operation to them, whether it just be automatic stabilization or something, but they're all going to do at least a little bit of thinking. So definitely.
Says, while doing some research on
WPE,
I found there is some chopped fiberglass build versions of UFHW sheets. The mechanical properties are better. Do you have any experience machining this material?
I don't. That's the first time I've ever heard about this. Is that Sonic? That's the first time I've ever heard about it. It shouldn't be that much different. So Garolite is a type of fiberglass, and machining Garolite is not terribly difficult. The only thing is it's abrasive because of the fiberglass. So when you machine it, you have tool wear. You can use diamond tools, which don't wear, or you can just use cheap high-speed steel. It doesn't last very long, or you can use carbide and it lasts a bit longer. So seeing as I already use those Onsrud carbide tooling, it should just basically machine the same way. It would just wear out a little bit quicker, which really isn't that big of a deal. So that's actually really cool. Yeah, send me a link or something. If you have a link for that, I'd be kind of curious. But yeah, fiberglass reinforced UHMW would be really neat. But yeah, should machine about the same.
Is the Stratasys rebuild going to be 1.75 millimeter and planning to do any harder to print plastics like polycarbonate?
Awesome question. Yes, it is. Let me see if I can do this. So here is the head that I'm working on. It is a Titan E3D Titan Arrowhead, and this is all 1.75, as you can maybe see. I'm doing 1.75 because it's just a lot more common and generally a lot cheaper to find. So I'm going with 1.75. In terms of exotic materials, I'm going to start getting this printed with PLA, then move on to ABS, because with ABS I'll have to work on the chamber. And then after I get ABS and PLA working, I'm probably going to switch out the nozzle to a hardened nozzle or a ruby nozzle and then I think nylon extra matter hackers will be the first thing I try, and then I'm gonna start getting into the more exotics. So definitely that's the plan for the Stratasys, is so that it can print some of those more exotic materials, because the CR10 that I've got back here is, good for basic stuff like PLA and ABS, but the Stratasys is what I'm going to use for more of the exotic material.
I know you've addressed this in other videos, but Cutter Slade asks, what's the black hoist in the background?
Black hoist? Oh, can you find the link to that video?
Yes.
Okay, so this is my camera stand. So let me type it down. So this is actually what I use for filming now. This is my filming rig. So let me switch to my video. Yeah. So for anyone kind of curious, this is, I don't think I've ever done this shot. This is actually my camera rig. On the end of it, I've got a Manfrotto tripod head here, so I've got a fluid head that I put on there. Yeah, it's a little bit better view. So I've got a fluid Manfrotto head, and then I have something on Amazon. I've got a cage around it. I use an Sony A7 R2 camera. I've got a 24mm Zeiss, a 55mm Zeiss, and a 85mm Rokinon lens with my Audio-Technica wireless lab. So this is my recording setup, and it can go really, really high to get those, great top-down shots.
We have watchers from Norway, Sweden, Germany.
Oh my God.
This is really cool.
Oh yeah, that's some overkill. Yes, it is overkill. See if I can. So you got to watch the video. Of course you have to watch the video, but just so everyone knows that I'm not faking anything. So yeah, this is a camera stand. Whee! So yeah, it's really overkill, but it's fantastic. I love it.
So getting back to Team Screw Up about the ferry weight, he said never been to an event, first time ever. So any first timer tips?
Yes. See if you can find who else is going to the event. You don't need to bring a lot of tools. I bring, this is kind of my basic tool kit. See if I can get a shot of this. Okay, I'm just going to pick it up. So this is kind of the basic toolkit that I have. It's just spare ESCs, spare motors, stuff like that. Everyone that goes to the event is going to have something very similar to this. So bring a couple spares for what you have. Bring some basic tools, but there's always going to be a soldering iron. There's always going to be some more, bigger tools. I think, what would you say? I think the biggest thing is most people don't talk about safety and check-in. When you first get to the event, you'll have to actually check into the event and you'll have to do a safety test. The safety test is basically that you have to demonstrate that your robot has the fail-safe setup. So what they're going to make you do is turn on your weapon if you have a weapon, drive around in a circle, and then turn off your radio. And what should happen is your robot should completely stop. So make sure you take care of this before you leave. Make sure you set up your fail-safes and set up all of that so that when the radio turns off, the robot turns off. Make sure you have something to clamp against sharp edges, so if there's no sharp edges exposed, the weapon isn't free to spin, little things like that. So look up, I think Spark Tools, the link that Kim provided earlier is a good place to look up kind of those safety event stuff, but make sure the safety check-in procedure you're fully aware of, and the rest of it's actually pretty easy. Just make sure that you have 2 batteries so that as soon as you're done with a match, you take one out, swap in a new one, stuff like that. But if you have any more questions, let me know.
Riptide has a complicated thing for me.
Okay.
The point about batteries is a good one. I revamped an old 80 kilogram robot from UK Robot Wars 1999. Eric. Oh. And removing the SLAs from that and replacing with live poly freed up some 30 kilograms or so. Does that make sense to you?
Where's his?
It's up there.
Oh, we getting backed up?
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And for who was asking the ferry weight question?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah. So I think for everyone watching, I think let me pull up this site really quick. Yeah. So these are the batteries that I'm using in Sergeant Cuddles right now. These are from helipal.com, HELAPAL.com, helipal. These are the Storm batteries, and this little guy is a 3-cell. I've got a 3-cell and a 4-cell, 50C discharge, little 300 milliamp hour. These are really cool because if you look at like Hobby King and other places like that, you can't find these tiny little batteries that have such a high discharge rate. So helipal.com is the place that I found these little batteries. So if you're doing small robots, definitely go with this. I know a couple other people have actually put cells together. And if you look at these, it's just a few cells put together. So you can actually go on Amazon or eBay and buy the individual cells directly and then solder them together and make your own little custom battery packs. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, your point about switching from an SLA battery, which is a sealed lead acid, for my wife and anyone that doesn't know, the power density on sealed lead acid is just laughably smaller than a lithium. So just switching over to a lithium battery from an SLA or an alkaline is going to be huge. So use lithium.
Jan Tomvik or John Tomvik? What is your time frame on the Stratasys?
Good question. So if I wasn't doing this video right now, I would actually be working on the Stratasys. My progress on it, I'm going to move the camera down here once more. So here's kind of the place where I stand. I actually have this extruding. I have this all set up so filament actually spits out the bottom. And I made this little adapter plate, which you can kind of see here. This adapter plate actually fits into the machine, and all of this is done. The only thing I have to do is basically just kind of make this a little bit neater and put this extruder into the machine, cross my fingers, and I actually should be able to print out a test piece. So that's actually going to be, I think you guys probably know better than me, that's going to be part 6 to this video, is actually getting something extruded out of the head onto the print bed. So that's going to be the next video. I would say probably about, maybe not next weekend, but maybe 2 weeks from now, you actually might see this actually start printing something. And then it's going to be, honestly judging how good the print is and kind of going from there. So it might only be a couple weeks before this thing's actually working.
Are you YouTube full-time, or do you have a day job? I know you used to work for SparkFun. What do you do these days? Interesting skill set. Would love to know what work opportunities there are.
Good question. I actually do this part-time. I have a full-time job that I do full-time. So yeah, this is just a part-time gig. I work 4/10s, so I have Friday, Saturday, and Sundays off, which kind of allows me to do this. But basically every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I'm out here in the shop doing something. But yes, I do have a full 9-to-5 job. My day job is a product manager. So I work for a company that makes energy monitors. If you want to link to egauge.net. eGauge is the company, and we make these little energy monitors that are, think about it as current monitors that are IoT. It has a built-in web server, stuff like that. I am product manager. I'm in charge of supply chain management, production, manufacturing, shipping, and product development. So that is my day job. There's more to that question too, right?
Just saying that you have a very interesting skill set, and they're curious what opportunities that opens up for you.
Yeah, I tinker a lot with stuff, and I did get my job at eGauge because a few of the engineers were very much familiar with SparkFun electronics. So they kind of knew me from Spark Fun, and I do have a lot of experience in manufacturing, bringing products to market, and kind of that whole electronic supply chain side and product development side. So pretty much any company that is going to be producing a piece of electronics, I'm kind of the guy to figure out how to do that, what features to put on there, what the costing is going to look like, and things like that. So that's pretty much my day job.
From Riptide. When you take a robot apart post-event, how do you start deciding on which improvements to make? It's always something I've had issues with.
Yeah, when you take it apart, what was that word? Oh, post-event?
Yeah, post-event, how do you decide what improvements to make?
That's a really good question, and I don't think you can see this. There's some mocked up improvements on crippling depression over here. I'm just now tearing down, this is crippling depression right here. And I'm just now tearing it down to kind of see what happened at the event. And a couple interesting things happened. I don't want to go into too many details because I could ramble for like a half an hour real quick on that. That's tough because with Sergeant Cuddles, I had a couple issues with it. I changed them and it ended up making it worse. So actually making this wider, I think made it drive and handle a lot worse than having it slimmer, which kind of goes against logic. But yeah, sometimes you change something and it ends up being worse than it was before. So with crippling depression, I've been a lot more careful about what I've changed. So if it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's been my motto for crippling depression is, as much as I want to make the weapon stronger, the weapon more powerful, it really wasn't necessary. That wasn't something that broke. So I didn't touch that. The drive was fine, so I didn't change that. I really just made little tiny changes on things that failed. So you got to look at things failing and why they failed, make one small step iteration change and leave it at that. Unfortunately, if you're going to make these drastic changes, you might have a cascade issue of a bunch of other things that fail. So hopefully that helps.
That's a little imposing. Tom Stuff asks, hello, what is that spinning drum on your table? I don't know.
Oh. So this is Sergeant Cuddles. Be like right in the crotch. So this is my 1 pound ant weight, US ant weight Sergeant Cuddles. Kim is going to link to some videos, but the general overview is we've got a solid titanium. I don't know if it's a drum or a beater bar, but this is the weapon up front. A 120 watt brushless motor, and then a frame made out of UHMW, and then ABS top and bottom plates. She'll link to the videos. There's a lot of information about this robot. So yeah, you can definitely check out those videos.
He said, I've made 3 fairweights and got 1, and I've watched your recent crippling depression video on Spice and picked up tactics. What would be the best tactic for a big spinner?
Ooh. It depends on the spinner. It depends on the spinner, really. If it's a drum spinner, I'd say watch your gyro forces, both the drum spinners and big vertical spinners, and this will apply to ferry weights. They have a lot of gyro effects. So you're driving along like this, and they tend to go up on the side. And if you go up on your side and get hit, that's when you get knocked upside down. And that's when some other things happen. So I really think, playing it safe when you're driving around, and acting like I'm an expert, and I know, but being really careful with those gyroscopic effects is really, really important. And you saw that in some of the later fights with Megatron and crippling depression. It's really hard to manage that much power spinning and also be really maneuverable. So I'm constantly ramping the weapon down when I want to maneuver more, ramping it up when I'm trying to go more steady, things like that. So you just kind of got to pay attention to that weapon and know that, especially at the small weight classes, the power to weight ratio is so high that that weapon is going to move you more than you're going to be able to move around. So just being paying attention to that. And if you have a vertical spinning weapon, you have to pay attention to that a lot more than when you have a horizontal spinning weapon. This is insane.
What's the best CNC mill to start?
Best CNC to start under $5,000 max. It depends. That's a tough question. Full disclosure, I am sponsored by Tormach. It's really difficult. If you're wanting to do anything with metal, I would say, I'm gonna say this, get the 440 bare bones. Just get the bare bones 440. It's like 4,900, so it's right under 5,000. You're gonna be able to do any metal you want. You can do titanium, tool steel, everything. That's if you wanna do metal. If you don't really necessarily need to do metal, or you only wanna do aluminum, I would say Carbide 3D. I would go either the Carbide 3D or Shapeoko. I would go either one of those if you want to do metal. They're a lot more rigid than the other counterparts, and you're going to spend more money on tooling. The biggest issue that you run into is rigidity and the spindle. So very quickly, this is a bigger question, but very quickly, the spindle. Something like the Tormach has a range from anywhere like, let's say 500 RPM up to 10,000 RPM. If you're cutting aluminum at 10,000 RPM, you gotta have a very rigid machine and you gotta go relatively fast. If you're cutting steel or titanium, you actually wanna go really slow. Something like a Shapeoko or any of those kind of routers, they're like 10,000 to 30,000 RPM. So if you wanna do anything with metal, it's near useless. Also with UHMW and other plastics, the spindle also needs to go really slow, and you just can't get the spindle slow enough to really do what you need it to do. It's more for wood or things like that. And rigidity, even the big Shapeoko is like 150 pounds. The base weight of the Tormach is like 400 pounds. So just significantly more rigid. So I would say Carbide 3D, Shapeoko, if you don't necessarily want to do metal, and just drop the cash for the Tormach if you wanted to.com. They also have a couple CNC machines that are similar to the Tormach. I would still go with the 440 though. Oh. For anyone, I've never really had Zeph on camera. Come here, buddy. Come here. So this is our greyhound, Zephyr. He doesn't want to be around me right now. He rarely comes out in the shop. He's not really all that interested in being out here, but that's Zephyr. What else we got?
So David Small is trying to get some behind the scenes. He's asking what do you plan on doing for your next robot, what weight class, what kind of weapon, or any other details?
Well, I'm going to do a 150-gram robot that can beat Gimli. I'm going to show you how to do a flipper right, and just kidding. I mean, realistically, for anyone, I mean, there's not that many people out here, but Sergeant Cuddles is getting retired. I'm never going to be fighting with Sergeant Cuddles again for no reason other than I just like trying new things. And this is my very first combat robot ever, so he's getting retired, and I'm going to move on to building a beetle weight. I like Kamikaze as a beetle, but it's just kind of impractical to actually fight it. It costs about $100 every time I put it in the arena because it destroys itself every single time, which was the intention, but it costs about $100 every time I put it in the arena because of that. So my goal is to make a more well-rounded beetle weight, you know, similar to Crippling Depression or Sergeant Cuddle, something that I can actually compete with and maybe actually do well with. So a beetle is in the future. I have no idea what it's going to look like, but I want to make a very, very competitive beetle. And then Crippling Depression is going to go through a complete rebuild from the ground up, and that's going to be for ABC in October. So that's what I'm building, David.
There's some side conversation talking about using smoothie board for stratasys. I don't know if you want to talk about it. They're kind of just chatting about it.
Yeah, and I saw one of you said that this looked like a Duet. Duet Wi-Fi. This is actually a smoothie board. I don't know if we can get a closer picture. I don't know if I'm going to make anyone mad right now, but I actually looked at both smoothie board and the Duet, and I don't know if it's Duet or Duet, whatever. I went with the smoothie board more because it had more documentation and more support. It's okay. It's okay. It is what it is. The network connection is really flaky. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's kind of the reason why I got it. The network connection is meh. You have to kind of solder on most things yourself, and the configuration is really cumbersome because you actually have to load it, put in the SD card, open it in Notepad, edit it, save it, eject the card, then reboot it. You can't really do real-time configuration in it, so it's kind of clunky and cumbersome for that. However, it kind of does do everything you could ever want it to do, but I also am kind of bummed because there's no good interface for this. You can use Pronterface, or you can use like the Raspberry Pi. What's the Raspberry Pi? Octopi. You can use Octopi and things like that, but I want like a big LCD touchscreen that has a really slick interface. Duet Wi-Fi kind of comes close to that, but I'm just amazed, David Small, that no one has programmed a really slick interface like Raise 3D. I'll put a link for that. Raise 3D has a rad interface, and I am not sure why anyone doesn't do something like this. So if I was going to buy a printer, this would be the one that I would get. Yeah, so there's Raise 3D. Raise 3D has a really cool interface, and I'm just not sure why anyone isn't doing an interface like that. Speed. Okay, so are there any rules for autonomous abilities? Ah, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, rules for autonomous abilities the robot can have for competition, and are these rules competition specific?
It's a good question. This is Samik's question about autonomous combat stuff. There are fully autonomous classes, and I think maybe Robo Games is the only one that really has that, like a full autonomous class. Beyond that, there's no real rules. You can have, let's just throw it out there. So some sharp infrared proximity sensors up front that when something gets close, it ramps the weapon up and does something else. That's all 100% legal. It really isn't event specific because quite frankly, people really haven't been doing autonomous stuff. So really the sky is your oyster. You can do whatever you want. You can put in any autonomous stuff in there. There's really no limit to it right now. If you go full autonomous, that's up to the competition. But if you do like semi-autonomous stuff, you can do whatever you want.
Max was asking about starting out. I think I'll go with the Tormach. What is the basic tooling I need? And do I need to take the enclosure?
So regarding who was that?
Max.
Max. So Max, regarding your question about Tormach, it really still depends on what you do. If you want to send me an email, Kim can put my email address in there. You can find it on YouTube too. She'll put in my email address. We can talk a little bit further about it. It depends on what you want to do for tooling. There's a lot of ways you can go with tooling. The most used end mill that I use, and actually John Saunders from NYC CNC, is just a basic 1/4 inch. So this is my most used end mill right there, just a 1/4 inch 2-flute end mill for aluminum. Something like that's going to run you about $10. So depending on what you're doing, $10 end mill, a couple holders, maybe a couple $100 you could get away with tooling. Tooling does add up. That red cart back there is completely full of tooling. A bunch of tooling over there. It can really add up. You just need to figure out what you're going to do. Send me an email. We'll talk about it a little bit. In terms of the full enclosure, I'm going to say it's not worth it. I don't think it's worth paying for. It's a nice enclosure. Look at how pretty it looks. You don't absolutely need it. If you're trying, if you had a budget of like $5,000, don't do the enclosure. Spend the money on the mill, spend the money on that. If you had like the option of a Shapeoko with an enclosure versus just a bare bones 440, go with the 440. It's gonna be the better mill. Don't waste the money on the enclosure if you don't absolutely have to do it. Now, if you're trying to do this in like your bedroom or something, you're gonna need enclosure, but you could go down to Home Depot and get MDF or plywood or something like that and build an enclosure. I would rather go that route and invest the money on the actual machine, but I probably wouldn't throw down all the money on their enclosure because it is very expensive.
Max was also asked what 3D printing.
So I think we can kind of see it. I'm going to point on the screen. That back here, this is my main 3D printer that I use right now. This is one of the Creality CR10s. It's pretty good. I did the review on it. I don't know if you want to find a link to that on my channel, CR10 review. It's, you know, it's all over YouTube. Everyone's getting paid to review this printer, and mine was provided by GearBest to review. But it is a good printer. I had a Lulzbot Taz 3 that was heavily modified, and I also had a Monoprice Select type thing, and this replaced both of them. When I got this, I was expecting to do a scathing review and just be like, oh, this thing's crap. I ended up selling my Taz after getting this. It's actually really good. It's sub $500 for a relatively big size. It really is a good printer. Once I get the Stratasys running, I think the Stratasys is probably going to make the CR10 irrelevant. I'm probably going to sell the CR10, but I think for the money, it's probably the best value you can get right now.
You must ask about your Stratasys and how it's doing. I think you're kind of answering.
Yeah, so I covered this a little bit earlier in the video, but I'll just cover it really quickly again. I've got the extruder head mounted up to the, I just 3D printed an adapter plate. I've got that all set up. I've got the settings with the smoothie board all set up. So it is actually extruding. It's extruding correctly and properly at the right rate and all that. The next thing to do is just to kind of clean up these wires, install the head in the machine, and hopefully by next weekend I should actually be able to test something. So maybe in the next 2 weeks you guys will see that next video of it actually printing something. No guarantees as to what the quality of the print is going to be, but I don't know, it might print something that kind of sort of looks like a Benchy, hopefully.
Nick asks, if a metal 3D printer gets in the same price range as your Tormach CNC, would you consider it reasonable?
Can I have both? I'm going to tell my wife to close her ears right now. If there was a metal printer that had a decent volume to it, I think I forgot the name of it. There's one that does like 4140, which is chromoly steel. If there was a printer at $5,000 that could do chromoly, I'll have it. Like I would spend the money. I would drop $5,000 for a chromoly steel printer. Now, if you're talking about the full like deluxe package, you know, $10,000, no, I probably would. But for $5,000, oh hell yeah, I will have a metal printer if that comes out. Yes.
That kind of answers the questions. If they drop the price, will we see making 3D printed metal bots?
3D printed metal bots, I don't know. One of the things I like so much about crippling depression, which I think is one of the reasons why it's successful, is marrying titanium, tool steel, aluminum, and UHMW. I don't necessarily think 3D printing a whole chassis out of aluminum or out of metal, I'm not sure. I would still use one, and I would definitely do some parts out of it, but I don't know if I would just build a whole thing from the ground up. If anyone watched Motorama, I think maybe if David Small's still around, he might actually be able to know, but one of Jameson's bots had a metal 3D printed drum, and it cracked in half. So, I mean, it's a neat technology, but it still might be better to machine stuff. However, using the 3D printer to prototype, I think it still has merit, and I would definitely still have one because it's a fun toy, but I'd have to play with it to know how much it could be useful in combat robotics.
Grove asks, what changes have combat robotics made to you, both positive and negative?
It's made my wallet lighter, that's for sure. It's very expensive. It's taken a lot of time away from me as well. And I'm sure the people that are not at all interested in combat robots would like to see maybe more non-combat robot stuff. And I am getting to that. Beyond that, I think it's pushed me. I was just talking with you, David, if you're still around. For crippling depression is the first time I've ever done a keyway. Like, I know what keyways are, but it's the first time I've ever actually done a keyway. It's the first time I've ever actually had a water jet component cut. Is the first time I've ever had anything heat treated. It's the first time I've ever reprogrammed an ESC. It's the first time I've ever custom programmed an ESC for brushless drive. So there's a lot of things that I learned because the sport and the community is so advanced. You really have to bring your A game. First time I did like 3D contouring, first time I did fixturing, it taught me a lot of things and forced me to do a lot of new things. So that's kind of my takeaway is I now know so much more after making crippling depression. So I think that's the biggest takeaway, is it just pushed me to learn a lot of new things.
We have a question from Max asking about what remote you use.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. I use the Tyrannus QX7, which is this guy.
I have crippling depression.
So this is the radio that I use. I previously used a Turnigy 9X, and I hate to be that guy. No contest. Throw your 9X in the trash and get one of these. Just not even close. And I'm not, usually I'm a little bit more practical with things. I'm like, oh, they're both good. There's no question. Also, the FR Sky ACCT, the communication protocol that it uses, is significantly better than the Spectrum DSM or DSMX. I had dropouts actually quite a bit, and I just kind of assumed that that was part of how it went with combat robots. I have never had a single dropout with this. I even lost 2 antenna wires on the robot. I had no antenna wires. It was just a bare module without any antennas. No issues with this. I really, really recommend their Tyrannus. And you can pick these up for about $100, $120, and they have a really good assortment of receivers as well. So highly recommend the FR Sky Tyrannus QX7.
We have a question.
Oh, hey, Jason.
440, toy or tube?
Wait, what?
The Tormach 440, toy or tube?
Oh, a 440 is a toy? So that's a great question. Here's solid titanium. I have done solid titanium. I've done S7 tool steel. Jason Hughes, I saw, just showed up. He has done a lot of this stuff too. Not even in the realm of a toy. This is a tool. I thought, I'll be the first to admit it, before I was sponsored by Tormach, when the 440 came out, I looked at it and I'm like, it's got no travel. It's this tiny little thing. It's a toy. It's just an entry-level toy. And then I saw the price and I was like, oh, that's way too expensive. I can do anything with the 440. I mean, I'm not doing like pre-hardened tool steel or anything like that. You could probably still do it, but I can do anything with it. So definitely not a toy. It is actually a tool, and I really like it. And Jason, if you want to kind of comment on your thoughts, I know you just got 1100, but it's a great machine.
Sonic says, please check out Desktop Metal. We use metal injection molding technology, but don't know the price. Yeah,
actually, I know of Desktop Metal. I was referring to them earlier. I think those are the guys that do the 4140. I did look into the price. It's in the 6 figures for the big one. I want to say it's like 50 to 100 grand still. You need their, let me look and see if this is the same one that I'm thinking of. Yes, yes. I did look into these guys. It's amazing that you can 3D print in 4140. It is very, very expensive. Not even in the realm of what something I will ever have anytime soon. So, unfortunately.
One of your videos at the end, this is from Team Screw, you proved it with the, I have crippling depression. So how do you do that?
Oh.
That was put on soundbite.
Yeah, so on your radio, bottom of that, if you're not familiar, download OpenTX Companion. There's a USB jack right on the bottom of that, and there's an SD card, little micro SD, that sits inside of there, and that has the sound files and stuff like that on it. You can change everything on these remotes, and I can't remember exactly what the name of the file is. You just have to look through the folders. So you plug this into your computer, it shows up as a mass storage device, and you go into like sounds or something like that. You can just literally see all the wave sound files, and you can just click on them, see what they sound like. I can't remember the name of it, but if you just click on them, because there's like 1 through like 50, and it's just like 1, 2, 3, and it goes through all the little things that it reads off. You just find that sound file and literally just copy and replace it with something else as long as the file name is the same. The weird thing to keep in mind is that it's not a 16-bit audio file, it's a 12-bit audio file. So you need something like Audacity or something like that to re-encode it as a 12-bit file, but you can change every single audio on the Taranis very simply. And I think I'm actually going to do a video on kind of programming the Taranis someday, so that will be included in there.
Max asks, where do I need to start if I want to enter in the world of combat robots?
Oh, that's a good question. Very first step is go on, if you want to do this link, buildersdb.com. Go on buildersdb.com. If you have Facebook, find the Combat Robot Facebook group. And my first step would be find a competition. Don't build anything yet. I built Sergeant Cuddles and went to a competition, never been to a competition before, lost 2 fights instantly and was done, and actually dropped combat robots for the next 6 months. Go to a competition before you start building something. Figure out what it's all about. See these things in person and get an idea of what it's like. When you watch them in the video, it's totally different. Find an event, see what it looks like, talk to some people, watch some of my videos, get an idea. If you don't have the tools that I have, start with a kit. There's a lot of great kits out there. Start with a kit and go to a competition and just kind of go from there. But I highly recommend going to a competition before you just start sitting down building things. Thank you.
Tyler Cook asks, how long did you spend planning and designing your new robot for crippling depression?
Good question. I spent about 6 months designing and building it. I started in the summer last year for competition in October. So yeah, somewhere around 6 months. I did about 2 months for the actual build, which was doing all the machining and everything else. And I'd say 3 to 4 months was actually SolidWorks and doing the prototyping. And I think I had it in a video. So down here, these are like all the test pieces for it. This is like the early version of the drive pod. There's another drive pod. Here's like what one of the side panels would have been. I prototyped this a lot before I actually started the build. So in the video, you can see I have like 2 or 3 wood chassis for this thing, all of the parts in wood. I did 2 months probably worth of SolidWorks in design, then went into prototyping things out of wood to see if they'd work, and then I started building. So the actual build of it took less time than all of the SolidWorks and stuff. So lots of planning.
All right, a little bit of a lull. Brian missed the start. We started a little early.
Oh, hey, Brian.
Asking about your job at eGauge, so I was kind of telling him about it.
Okay.
To get together his questions
Okay.
to ask since he missed the start.
Yeah, he was the one that I accidentally said it was going to be on Friday, and I think he showed up Friday waiting for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
So sorry, Brian.
Sorry, Brian. I think we're caught up. I don't know if you wanted to talk about videos. Get some water. Will we need some water?
Maybe something to drink. Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you want to get, I can ask this. Yeah. I played with any other company. I'll answer a couple of these questions. So for Brian, I do use Fusion 360. I have tried Onshape, and obviously I use SolidWorks primarily. I like Fusion 360. There's a couple things that drive me nuts, mainly the way it does like screw holes. Like I love the smart fasteners feature in SolidWorks, and the fact that Fusion doesn't have that is just actually almost a deal breaker for me. However, a lot of times I will make a part in SolidWorks, export it, open it in Fusion 360, and use Fusion 360 specifically for the cam. So I do like Fusion 360. I think if you're starting out from scratch and don't know what you're missing or don't know how all the tools are arranged, I think Fusion 360 is great. Onshape, I wouldn't do Onshape. I really don't like Onshape. It's missing a lot of the cam features, and it might have changed because they're continually improving it. Onshape also kind of runs in the browser and stuff. I don't think Onshape is really the right way to go. I think it's between SolidWorks and, thank you, SolidWorks and Fusion 360. I think those are the two big ones that you should look at, and I would definitely go with Fusion 360 for the cost. I would only go with SolidWorks if you already know SolidWorks. Although I think SolidWorks is better, but it's really expensive. Fusion 360 is just the deal of the century right now, so Fusion 360 is very good.
To answer Matthew's question, do you have any formal training? If yes or no, what is your opinion on self-taught skills considering how prolific information is on the internet?
So yeah, that's a very good question, Matthew. I would say, I'm trying to think of something I'm not self-taught in. I don't think I have any formal training in CNC. I don't have any formal training in SolidWorks or any of that. I think I'm 100% not self-taught, but internet taught. I don't have any formal training in anything. I'm looking around. Yeah, I've never really taken a class on anything. I don't think either way is good or bad, because I've definitely talked to engineers and talked to people that have, taken classes on CNC. Like, John Saunders, NYCNC, he does like CAM classes. I am 100% positive if I took one of his intro to CAM or intro to machining classes, I would learn a tremendous amount that I don't know. However, him and I sitting down making the same part, I think we both get there, but I would still learn a lot, and he might even learn something from me, who knows? I think with these topics, there's so much to know that there's always going to be little pieces that you're missing. You don't have to learn the fundamentals, but sometimes learning the fundamentals is good. So I think for my purposes, what I'm doing is specifically building a project. I think the self-taught works fine for me, but I don't know if I would ever really want to get a job doing mechanical engineering. I think I would have a lot of holes that I just wouldn't know how to do a lot of things.
Brian asked, are there any other combat robots that are using weapons like thermal compression?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it's windy. So Brian was asking about, basically undercutters. So crippling depression is an undercutter, and just because this is video and I can. So this is the weapon. What? What? Okay. So this is the weapon to crippling depression. It's an undercutter. There's a lot of talk at Motorama about what defines an undercutter, because mine's a true undercutter in that it rests about 50 thousandths off of the floor. There's a lot of mid cutters that are kind of up like that or up like that. If you watch my compilation video, Burnout is kind of a mid cutter. There's really not that many that ride right on the floor. What a lot of guys do is they have two wheels in the back, the weapon that sticks out the front, and then they kind of have a nub through the center hole, and that's what everything rides on. Whereas mine doesn't really ride on the weapon. The weapon is basically like almost rubbing on the ground. So it's kind of unique in that most people don't go that low in a true undercutter design.
The reason I was laughing is my dad asked if you trimmed your beard.
Oh! Where is he? Yes, I did. Thank you. That's amazing. Oh, the internet.
Hi, Dad.
Hello.
Max asked what software to use for designs, and Brian responded with SolidWorks.
Yep. So I use SolidWorks for everything. This kind of goes into what Brian asked earlier. I really only use SolidWorks because it's just what I'm familiar with and what I know. Anyone that's emailed me before knows that I always recommend Fusion 360. If you're starting out with design software, definitely take a look at Fusion 360. The reason I don't use it primarily is I know SolidWorks, and it's taken me like 10 years of using SolidWorks to get to where I am, so I don't really want to switch over. But if you're starting from scratch, Fusion 360 is the way to go.
Tyler asked, have you heard of First Robotics competition?
Yes, I'm very familiar with First Robotics, or FRC. I never got a chance to do it when I was in school, but First Robotics is really cool. I'm very good friends with Brian, the founder of Servo City and Actobotics, and they're heavy sponsors of First Robotics. So yeah, First Robotics is really cool. It's lucky if you're able to do that in school.
We have a couple of people asking about future combat robots. One more specific question from Logan. Do you plan on a combat robot that does not use a spinner?
No.
What about you, Marky?
Yeah. I think I'm always going to have some kind of kinetic weapon. So with combat robots, you have a lot of different options to win or impart damage onto the other guy. You can do a flipper, you can do like a hammer, things like that. The problem with all these other weapons is that with a hammer, you're going from here to here in, let's say, 1/10 of a second. You can't really gain much kinetic energy or a lot of momentum in that period of time. Some people are very successful with it, and it's still a good design, but you're never going to have the high kinetic energy stored in that weapon. And same with a flipper, you can flip someone, but I can take crippling depression right now and just drop it on the concrete and nothing will happen. They're very sturdy robots, so getting flipped around really doesn't hurt them that much. So for me and my style and what I want to do, it's going to be basically spinning a mass of material and then running that mass of the material into something else so that kinetic energy transfers into the other robot. So that's going to be my style, at least for a while.
Mark asked a follow-up question. Do you see yourself building a heavyweight?
Yes, I will someday build a heavyweight. I have zero plans for it right now, but I will, if I'm bored with combat robots, I will build a heavyweight before I stop building robots. There will be a heavyweight in my future someday.
Clancy Liv asks, would you be willing to CNC parts for somebody else?
Sorry, I choked a little bit. No. No. I will never do contract work. As much as I'd like to, it's too complicated. Fixturing is really difficult. You don't always have the right tools. I'm set up to do my own stuff, and I can kind of plug through my own stuff, but I don't feel like I have the knowledge or the experience to really start doing other people's stuff. And quite frankly, my time is really valuable with how much, this, I have my day job, I have this, I just really don't have the free time to spend on other people's projects, unfortunately.
Brian asks, related question on the crippling depression bot. Will you add a flipper mechanism so you can switch from top or bottom weapon advantage during a battle?
I've thought about that so many times. The problem is, so let's say you have a servo motor, you have a normal DC motor, and then you have some kind of arm that can flip it, or you even have a wedge that can flip. You're going to spend, you're probably going to spend at least 5 pounds on that mechanism, and I just don't really have 5 pounds to take off. The front, back, and left and right plates are about 1 pound a piece, so you've got somewhere around like 7 pounds in the chassis. It could be really hard to find that extra weight. So unfortunately, I would love to be able to dynamically flip from upside down to right side up in a fight, but you're talking about taking weight away from somewhere else. The weapon is 7¼ pounds. Maybe I could do a flipping mechanism. These are called SRIMEC, self-righting mechanical mechanism, something like that. I could spend the 2 or 3 pounds maybe to do one, but they fail a lot. They get broken because they're kind of, loosely mounted. I just don't think it's going to work out. Definitely not in this weight class. It's just too much weight that's too valuable elsewhere.
Yeah, he said it was really cool seeing the gyro effect in combat, but you were saying you might be able to use.
Yeah, I might be able to flip crippling depression from upside down to right side up. If I was able to drive forward, stop, drive backwards, dip the front down, and then kind of spin, I might be able to do that, but it's something that you don't really get the opportunity to practice, because I'm not going to practice that out here in the garage. So you only have to practice it in the arena. I could maybe make like a macro on my radio that could flip it, but then there's no way to flip back, unfortunately. So I just made it invertible so that I can drive in both ways. And little spoiler alert, the new crippling depression version 3 is going to be significantly more invertible. It's going to have almost equal drive in both ways.
Commander Root asks, are you going to BattleBot Season 3 filming?
I saw, for anyone not familiar, BattleBot Season 3 is happening. It just got picked up from Discovery Channel pretty recently, and they're filming, I think, and Eventbrite, I don't know if you know this, Kim, Eventbrite just posted it's like $25 to get a ticket to go see live filming. I totally would, but it's just a time issue and flying out to San Francisco. I just don't have that much time. I'll watch it when it's on TV, but unfortunately I'm not going out to the filming.
Max asks, what vacuum cleaner do you use?
That's a really good, like at home or out here in the shop?
How do you imagine the shop?
Well, if you're asking about in the house, we actually do have a central vacuum system, but we don't have any hoses to it. So we use a powder blue Miele 900 watt, or like 1200 watt, 15?
Why do you know the wattage of our vacuum?
It's on the thing. Yeah, I think it's a 1500. We use a Miele canister vacuum. I'm assuming you mean out in the garage, so let me go grab that. Let's see if I can show this. Like right in the way. So this is what I use out in the shop. It's just a really simple Craftsman. I've had this for probably a decade or so. So I've got, this is a 4 horsepower. It's not 4 horsepower. They call it a 4 horsepower, 8 gallons. So just a basic wet dry shop vac. And I have this going into a cyclone separator. This is a, someone in the comments is going to know what this is. Oh, Oneida. It's like O-N-E-I-D-A, an Oneida cyclone. You can look it down. It's on Amazon. But this separates everything and then goes down to the bucket. So the cool thing is, if you guys have ever used a shop vac, you know that the filters in these things always get super clogged. So I haven't looked at this filter in probably a year now. Let's see what it looks like. Look at that.
Dust Deputy.
Dust Deputy, yeah. So here's the filter after a year's worth of use. It looks pretty much flawless. And there's almost nothing in the bottom here. So what the Dust Deputy does is it sucks in, sucks in this way, spins everything around, and all the material actually falls down into this bucket. I've emptied this bucket probably 10 times since I've changed that filter. So nothing goes into the filter, because as soon as stuff goes into the filter, you lose all your suction, like the Dyson commercials. You lose all your suction, and then it just doesn't perform, and you have to buy a new filter. So I actually use this for everything. It's also really nice for like vacuuming up chips and heavy stuff like that. It takes up a lot of space in here. So that's what I use for vacuum. If you want me to go get the Miele inside, I will.
We might be having some quality problems.
Oh. Okay.
If there's anything you can do with that.
Shows is good.
Okay.
My health stream is good. I guess the chat is still. Does anyone want me to read? If anyone wants me to say anything or do anything again, let me know.
Yeah, I think it just gets kind of grainy from time to time and laggy, but I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything we can do about that.
Yeah, we had a Commander Root asking what's your day job again, so that's a very popular question.
Okay. So.
And the services.
So Commander Root and Matthias? Matthias? I answered both of these questions earlier. I'll give a recap if you want to. you can go back and rewatch the bigger explanation. She's probably going to post my day job thing, but for my day job, I work for eGauge Systems. eGauge.net is the web address, and it's a company that makes energy monitors. So I am the product manager. I do all the supply chain manufacturing and stuff like that, and the product development. So yeah, electrical engineering, kind of.
David asked, what's your night job?
Well, David, you're looking at it. And I've answered the Stratasys question a little bit. You can look back in the feed, but essentially the extruder is extruding. I basically just have to wire everything up, kind of put it back into the machine. It's all on my workbench right now, and hopefully next weekend I'll get some prints done.
So this is kind of a similar question, but it's actually a good one. Paul asked, is your workshop for your job, or have you built it up as a hobby?
Good question. So the workshop out here is pretty much just for my hobby. However, I do a lot of work out here. Just the other day, let me see. This is my laser. Just the other day, you might be able to see, I have a little template in here. I was just laser engraving some enclosures for work. So every so often I do stuff out here for work, doing some like laser cutting prototypes. I actually do some, this is a neat shot. I do 3D printing prototypes. I've used the Tormach a few times doing some prototype. You guys will absolutely never see any of those videos, unfortunately, because this is all NDA stuff. I have all sorts of NDAs and non-competes. I can't share any of that information, but I actually do use my workshop quite a bit for work stuff. But the workshop itself was built just for hobbies. The work stuff is just kind of a bonus.
So I think the consensus here is lots of people want to see your Stratasys video.
Yes, I know.
Mark asked a question, CNC question. What's a typical time breakdown for you for CNC? Is it more time doing CAM or machining?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. So I was going to do this video. So this part, show it to you up close. So this is a part that I built for crippling depression. I never really showed it anywhere. This is machined out of a solid piece of titanium. What I wanted to do was, I'll answer your question, but what I wanted to do was make a video on how to make this part. It is very simple. It's like 2 operations. It's really quick in design time, it's really quick in CAM, and it's really quick in the actual machining. And I kind of wanted to show what that breakdown is. It really varies by each part. So this has a relatively easy setup, but some other parts I've made have a really complicated setup. So it really depends on the part. If I actually have to make a fixture for something and then bolt the thing down to the fixture, then I would say the setup time takes more than the machining time. If it's solid titanium, the machining time might take longer than the setup time or the CAM or the CAD side. So it really depends on the part. For a standard part, like, I don't really have a good example here, but let's say one of these guys. So this is one of the internal, this is like version 1 internal frame rail for crippling depression. Something like this, the design time takes a really long time because I was, iterating the robot and everything. But if I was just going to sit down and design this from scratch, I'd say maybe like an hour, 2 hours is what it would take me to design this, maybe less. That would be about the time it would take to do that. I'd say CAM, half an hour. It would probably take, maybe even 15 minutes to half an hour to do the CAM. And in terms of machining, I think the machine time on this with the fixture plate is about a half an hour. So it's actually all about equal, but this is also a 2-dimensional, relatively simple 6061 aluminum part. So if everything is standard, let's say, it's a relatively easy part to the machine, there's nothing complicated in the CAM, it doesn't really need a fixture, and it's just aluminum, I'd say each step is roughly equal, assuming that there's no complexities. But as soon as it's a hardened material, machining time takes more. As soon as it has complex CAM, CAM is more. So hopefully that gives you a little bit better idea.
Yeah. So did you cover if you tried different CAM profiles or just your modeling experience? Did you kind of go over that?
CAM profiles. Who was asking that?
There's a follow-up to that initial question. Mark?
Oh, yeah, so I'm a little bit confused by CAM profiles. You might be speaking more to like 3D printing, which, the slicer is kind of your CAM. Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but it a little bit is experience. So when I do something like this, I know that I'm going to use my 1/4 inch 2 flute end mill. I know that I'm going to take, I think it's like I actually forgot. It's like 10 thou width the cut, something like that, 20 thou width the cut. And I know that I'm going to go at like 25 inches per minute. It's like, I just kind of know that for a simple part like this, I know what the feeds and speeds are going to be, and I don't really have to think about it. When I did the titanium part, I really didn't know what the feeds and speeds were going to be. I kind of based them off of what I did for this piece. So it's a little bit of both. Sometimes you have to try new things. Other times I literally just open the last file that I made, copy those settings, and go and don't even think about it. I also have the luxury of not doing production, so I only have to build 1 or 2 of it. So if it goes slow, it goes slow. No big deal.
Someone asks, did you go to college? If so, what did you major in?
So I did go to college, kind of. It took me a long time. I actually got accepted to the University of Colorado in Boulder and went to school for computer science. I effectively dropped out after maybe a semester or 2, took a long break, and finally went back and enrolled in business school. Kind of dropped out of that after a semester, and then finally went to school for psychology, and I actually have a degree in psychology, but it took me about 6.5 years to get through school. But I do have a bachelor's degree in psychology.
Are you into woodworking, and did you build any furniture for the house? Brian did bring up your workbenches or self-made.
Okay. Yeah, if anyone, I don't know if you want to say, if anyone has any questions about my workbench, this is a good time. I probably won't ever make a video on my workbenches, maybe, but if you want to know any questions about that, let me know. Woodworking, you can see back here, I do have a table saw. So I've got one of these rigid table saws. This thing's actually pretty cool. I really like it. I don't do a lot of woodworking. I certainly don't do any furniture for inside. Maybe someday I will do something like that, but woodworking isn't so much my thing. The only woodworking I actually do is to prototype things that are eventually going to be metal or maybe 3D printed, but I just haven't gotten there. If I was going to do woodworking, I'd need a joiner, I'd need a planer, and I hate buying new tools. I'm kidding. I love buying new tools, but wood and metalworking kind of don't necessarily go together well in the same shop. Someone's going to say I'm wrong, but over here, maybe someday woodworking, maybe, but not really focused on woodworking just now.
Mark follows up on the CAM profile as a raster, pencil, waterline, high DOC versus high DOC.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but you're kind of referring to, that's like 3D profiling stuff. I really don't do a lot of 3D profiling. So that's really not totally comfortable answering that question. I highly recommend NYC, CNC. For anyone that wants to know any CAM questions, definitely go to John with that. I know just enough to kind of get by with it, but I think that's definitely more of an NYC, CNC question, unfortunately, for the outer panels of crippling depression, which have kind of a radius to them. I can't remember what the name of it is, but I just did the really simple back and forth, just the one direction, because I really didn't care about the finish quality because it just gets beat to hell. So yeah, that's really not a good question for me because I don't really know. Sorry.
We have a question from Wonderful Stillskin. How many bits to cut the tool steel weapon for the 3-pound robot?
Oh.
Like how many bits do you have to use?
Yeah, that's, so, let me see if I have that. So you're referring to Kamikaze's weapon right here. I was relatively new to machining tool steel at this time. So this is 4140 chromoly steel, and I did it wrong. I think I used the right end mill. There are better end mills to use, but I did this wrong. I didn't do flood coolant. I cut this dry, and I had a hard time with it. I went through one end mill, so I actually only used one end mill to do all of this. But doing it over again, I would have done something different. I used a standard 4 flute. So I used a standard 4 flute mill, which I'm not sure if it's this one or another one. Just a standard 4 flute. I would probably do something instead, go to a 5 flute, which I don't have up here right now. Oh, here we go. So this is the end mill that I actually use for all my S7 counterboring and stuff. It's a 5 flute end mill and it has a slightly different coating on it. If I was going to do this part over again, I would definitely have used these. I just get all my end mills from Tormach's website for various reasons, but mostly because I just kind of trust that they know what they're doing. And this is a high performance made for stainless steels and titaniums. And I would use this. I've done a couple small test cuts on this, and it works out really well. This with flood coolant or mist coolant would have been a lot better on this, but I kind of did it wrong.
Asking how or where did you learn how to use a CNC mill? Is that something you can learn by just trying?
You could learn just by trying. You're going to take a lot more time. I'll try and make this a short story, but this is the third or fourth CNC machine that I've actually had. And my first 2, I tried just learning on my own by trying. It's not that easy. Your instincts are wrong. So like you hear a bunch of noise and it's not cutting well, then you slow it down and that only makes it worse. So your instincts are kind of off. Like sometimes you actually need to go a lot faster and sometimes you need to use less flutes and more flutes. It's actually something that's really tricky to kind of go through trial and error unless you just make a document and try everything. So I would really recommend, once again, John Saunders, NYC, CNC. He's a machinist guy. He has a lot of really good videos on how to learn how to do it. That's where I would start. The first part of that question was, am I self-taught? Or how did I learn?
Yeah.
So
where did you learn how to use it?
Yeah, so when I first started getting serious about CNC, when I had my first 2 CNC machines, I actually made the CNC machine because I thought it was cool to have one, but I didn't really have a project in mind. Once I got a CNC to where I actually needed to start making something, then I needed to learn how to do it right. And I started watching a lot of YouTube videos. As I mentioned earlier, John Saunders, NYC CNC. I started watching a lot of his videos and I started kind of learning how to do it a little bit more right. And once you get that first cut that works and it's like, oh, this is how you do it right, that kind of opens up the door and you start learning a lot quicker. And then you feel more confident doing much harder things. So I say a little bit of both, a little bit of structured learning, but a lot of just trying it on your own. But don't just sit down and try and do things on your own. Definitely at least start with a template.
Paul asks, which is your most useful or used tool for constructing your robots and what do you use it for?
Do you know what I'm going to grab?
Oh.
Sorry. This is my most used tool, probably in the shop all around. Bosch, just simple handheld. The thing I like about this so much is that the size is perfect. It's got a good amount of power to it. And really when it comes down to it, I build and unbuild crippling depression and all my other robots like 100 times. And every single time we have to change out the battery, I take the whole top off, put the whole top back on. And I design all my robots so that like 2 or 3 bits can actually take apart the whole thing. So I've got one standard size Allen key on the outside, one standard on the top and bottom, and then just a Phillips. So yeah, this is probably my most used. If you want my second best, let me know. Oh yeah? Go quicker.
Shinar asked, have you ever built a car? I don't know if that means full-blown car or steam car.
I've never built a car. I don't know if you mean something else. Back in the bins back here, in these bins, I actually have a couple motors to do a power go-kart. There's like a power kart racing thing that I was going to enter into. I never ended up doing it because Combat Robots, there's a competition instead. So I ended up building that instead. But I have one of those bins is all wheelchair motors and wheels. I have like 12 wheelchair motors. And I've been wanting to kind of build like a little go-kart or something, but just, other projects I haven't gotten around to it. It's just not a practical thing. I haven't really had a good excuse to do it yet.
Yeah. Kevin asks, where do you get most of your mechanical parts that you don't make yourself?
Oh, McMaster Car. I get almost everything from McMaster Car. It's expensive, but they always have what you want. So highly recommend McMaster Car. If McMaster Car is going to be really crazy, like bearings, VXB, Victor X-Ray Boy. Putting in that link. VXB.com. Yeah, VXB.com for all my bearings. Amazon is getting really good at mechanical stuff, and it's significantly cheaper than McMaster. It's just harder to find stuff. So I start at McMaster. If they're going to be stupid expensive, I go to Amazon. For all my bearings, I go to VXB. VXB is also carried on Amazon. I also use eBay sometimes. And then for a lot of other little components, I actually do Servo City for a lot of their stuff. So they actually have bearings and just like little connectors and linkages and stuff like that. So I also use them as well. And sometimes they're actually the cheapest out of everywhere. The shafts that I use inside Crippling Depression are actually from Servo City. And for anyone watching the videos on the mill turning, all of those shafts actually also came from Servo City as well.
Jonathan Branson asked, do you miss SparkFun? Is it from SparkFun?
Huh?
You sounded like you knew the name.
No, yeah, Jonathan's a longtime Patreon supporter. Hello, Jonathan. That's a loaded question. That's a really loaded question. I do miss, how do I say that? I miss the idea of working at SparkFun, but I don't want to go back to SparkFun, if that's a good answer. I miss being in the community. I miss doing the weekly videos. I kind of miss that culture, but I don't want that specific job again.
All right. Jonathan also asks, when are you going to set up an Amazon affiliate link so we can support you more?
I don't know. So let me explain this. So Jonathan has been asking me to set up an Amazon affiliate program for like the longest time, and I never have. I'm sorry. The main reason I haven't done it is because, so I have my idea for the video, right? And then I put everything together, then I film the video, and then I edit the video, and then I upload it and schedule and do all that stuff. And I'm just getting to the point where I'm remembering to do a good thumbnail. And then about an hour before it's scheduled, I'm like, the description and all the tags, and I end up doing that the last minute right before it is uploaded. And so I always forget to do like Amazon links and all the other stuff. And it's always a rush to get all the links in there. So that's kind of the reason I haven't done the Amazon, is because I always do that last minute and I don't really plan it out. If I had planned that out more, I would definitely do the affiliate. But for any upcoming projects, if I'm buying something from Amazon, I promise I'll do an Amazon affiliate link instead.
Here's a technical question from Womble Stillskin. I love your questions because I get to see your name.
Who was it again?
Womble Stillskin. You love to determine that the heat dissipation is not adversely affected.
You asked this question before. I haven't done tests. However, in the last version, I'm trying to find the motors. In the last version of crippling depression, the last fight, I had no issue. Well, nothing overheated. I didn't melt anything. So, and I was pushing it really, really hard in that competition. I had no issues. So let me just kind of give you a better idea of what I do to the motors. Here. Ask me another question.
Crunchy or creamy peanut butter?
Oh, crunchy.
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 Crunchy is the consensus.
Crunchy. Good question. That's the best question so far. Where are my motors? Don't have to do that. It's just a game. I have a bag of like 5 of these motors.
Jan or John asked, what are you drinking? Tea, always tea.
Yep. Yeah, I'm drinking iced tea. There was a promotional video that Tormach did where they came out here and did like a little customer story thing. And everyone's like, oh, that must be amazing sitting out in your garage drinking beer. I don't drink beer, it was iced tea. It's always iced tea, so sorry. Now I'm like really confused.
Is it in the shipping box?
Oh.
Yay!
Thank you, wife.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to go back to the motors question real quick. Of course, these have snap rings on them. Yeah, snap rings. Yes, another one.
Do you use Alibaba?
Yeah, I do use Alibaba. For my day job, I do a lot of supply chain stuff, and I've used Alibaba pretty extensively. AliExpress as well, you know, their partner sister site. I use it quite a bit. Do you have any specific questions about it? If you have any specific questions, let me know. So here is one of my 50/50 motors. I'll pull this apart. So here's what the inside looks like. A lot of people don't epoxy this. I epoxy this as well. And I don't know how much, it looks okay. You can see that I get really close into all the windings, and there's what the top looks like. I picked this one because this one is the prettiest of all my motors. It's actually really well done. What I do is I actually just goop all the epoxy on there, and then when it sets up a little bit, I actually use a hobby knife and just, I just kind of scrape along each one of the motors, and that's how I get the nice finish. And then this is what the inside looks like. So this, I don't think you'd have any heat or thermal issues with. This, I mean, you're definitely, you know, kind of blanking it a little bit and adding some heat into it. But I think you can kind of attest to this. Even with the really hard matches, we would always feel the motors afterwards, and they were like warm, but never dangerously hot. I mean, you could fully hold them and it wasn't too hot. So it probably is adding or subtracting from the thermal dissipation, whatever. It's making it hotter for sure, but not to an issue that I'm concerned about. So I think this is well worth doing, and the trade-offs are minimal.
People have a hard time hearing me say the question, so if you want to repeat it,
Oh, okay.
I think I'm too far away. And maybe next time we do 1080p or something in a lapel mic.
It is the highest quality we can do without running something back inside. Oh, sorry. Well, this is the first time we'll try something better. For audio, I'll do my lapel mic next time instead.
Jonathan asks, How did you end up with such an understanding wife that lets you spend time in your shop?
You want to answer it?
He charmed the pants off me is what.
You're wearing pants.
Well, I had to put them back on.
I think the more appropriate question or answer to that is we're very understanding of what we want out of life and what our goals are. And, you know, this is definitely one of my goals. This is what I want to be doing in life. And she helps me support it and I help support her. So, you know, find someone that will support you and you can support them back.
Or find someone else with a hobby.
Or find someone else with a hobby. I think it's very important to be with someone. She doesn't build combat robots, but she understands and likes it enough to respect it as my hobby, and likewise, I respect her hobbies enough. So I think, you know, respecting each other's hobbies is a big one. Put your link down there. My wife does all sorts of art stuff, but primarily sculpture. So she will post a link to her sculpting.
Let's see.
Did she? Oh, relationship tutorials. I would do that.
Someone asks, are all the suppliers reliable from Alibaba? How do you pick your suppliers?
That's
Repeat maybe.
yeah. So who was this? Samik. So Samik asked about Alibaba. He asked specifically about how do you pick suppliers and how do you find out if they're reliable. That's $1 million question. Don't go with the cheapest one. I think that's just kind of the obvious. If it's too good to be true, don't go with them. The thing that I've always done is I order a couple batches from them. You're just going to have to start out with 5, start out with 10, get some samples, really push the communication. Make sure you don't get just 1 or 2 emails from them. See how long it takes for them to email you back. So say, can I have this in blue? Can I get 10 of them? Can I get them packaged this way? Can you send me compliance documents, whatever, like kind of really test them a little bit, get a small batch in, test them out, maybe say one was bad, see what they do. Legit companies will work with you and help you out. If you get 10 of something and you say one is bad and you never hear back from them, don't use them again. If they immediately say that they'll credit you on the next order or they'll send you a replacement, that's a good sign. You just kind of have to build up a relationship. I have a couple companies that I work with at my professional day job. I have one company out of Taiwan that I basically just email this guy, Jim, and I say, Jim, find me this part. He goes overseas, he finds it for me, and they basically act as a broker. You just need to kind of set up some people that you trust. So I use Alibaba to find new stuff. But once you find people that you trust, you can definitely use them over and over. So if there's something kind of specific that you're looking for, maybe send me an email, let me know. But with Alibaba, you just got to cross your fingers and use your gut instinct and do small orders until you do the really big order. And assume that you might get screwed over. I mean, it's going to happen.
Little ask.
Little.
Any plans for new robots for robo games?
Oh, for robo games. No, robo games is tough. If you've been they asked about any new plans for robots on robo games. Robo games is a really tough competition. I don't know if I'm going to compete there anytime soon. It's long and grueling to do 3 days of competition, and it's not the best run event, and it's just kind of chaotic and stressful. So I'm not really too interested in doing robo games. Have you this year just to watch? I've been 2 years watching, and I might go again just to watch. But right now, robo games really isn't on my radar. I'm going to focus with Motorama and ABC, maybe build something bigger in the future. There's a lot more questions. I thought this was going to be a ghost town. I thought there was going to be like no one and like one question. This is intense.
You have 44 watching now, and there's some from New Zealand, like
wow.
all over Europe. It's great.
Hello, world.
I think we've covered most of the questions. Some repeats. robots you kind of covered that.
Yeah, so Camden asked if I'm going to do 1 pound or smaller. I think for right now, I'm done with small robots. I mentioned earlier that I'm planning on doing a 3 pound, a beetle weight, sometime. I've been successful with Sergeant Cuddles in the 1 pound. I've been successful at the 30 pound. I want to do a beetle that's really successful someday. I don't really have any specific plans, but eventually I'm going to do a beetle. I don't think I'm ever going to go smaller than 1 pound. It's just, I think it's too limiting for me and what I want to do. I'm amazed that anyone ever builds a 150-gram robot. I am just amazed by that. And applause to anyone that builds 150-gram. And I'm looking at you, David Small. So, but yeah, not really kind of my goal and what I want to do.
Brian was talking about another YouTuber, 56, about finding suppliers watching unboxing and mailed out videos.
Oh, I'm gonna look at that.
And Julian, like,
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a
what you're doing.
it's a good call. I'll heal Allison. Moving this out of the way. What?
Oh, Brad has a good question.
Yeah.
What do you think of the Annoy drones and satellite robots and BattleBots or other combat robot competitions?
Oh.
You want to repeat that a little?
Yeah. So let me read the question. So Brian asked what I think about the Annoy drones and those things like the accessory bots in BattleBots. I think they're gimmicky, and I think that they go in the wrong direction for BattleBots because a lot of people that watch BattleBots don't really know what's involved. They don't really know the sheer scale or size of these robots and how powerful they really are. So when you put a drone in there and then the two robots hit and don't really do anything, it kind of makes the whole sport seem gimmicky and just kind of lame because, robots don't always have these big explosive hits. It's rare. And I think it's the deficiencies that we have in the sport, getting really good, consistent fights. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is make it more gimmicky and flashy by adding an element that points out the worst flaws with the sport. I wish they'd focus less on the glitz and the glamour, and after a fight, go into the pit and have a camera crew that shows opening it up, and before the fight actually shows and really show what these machines are about. I don't think drones and all these like gimmick bots are the way to do it. I think they really need to assume a higher level of intelligence from the viewer and actually get more in depth on the robots and not try and dumb it down for everyone.
Yeah, Brian agrees with you. We have Denmark and Norway.
Wow.
Mark asks, I'm not sure if this has already been asked, what's your deal with Tormach as a brand ambassador?
Okay. What's on this? What's your deal? So, who was that that asked that? Mark. So Mark asks, what's the deal with Tormach and my brand ambassador? So I am a brand ambassador for Tormach. They make CNC machines. They approached me a couple of years ago because of my YouTube channel and also my work with Sparkfun Electronics, and they wanted to know if I would be a brand ambassador for them. And basically, my agreement is largely under NDA, so I can't discuss the specific details of it. But I don't work for Tormach. I don't really make any money from them per se, but I am a resource. So if you have questions about a mill and don't want to talk to Tormach directly and want to know what it's like to actually own one of these, I am a resource. So I am tasked with putting out videos and basically just using the machine and showing people how it works so that you get a different idea. You know, it's not like I'm not a data sheet, you know, I'm not like a user manual. I'm actually someone that has the machine in the garage as a normal person and can answer more questions from a day-to-day basis instead of, you know, calling their tech support and asking questions that way. And if you want to know anything more, just let me know.
People are asking about heavyweights, you kind of already talked about that. Side question, what's your favorite film from Sploodle?
From Sploodle, my favorite film. Ooh. That's a good question. I think my favorite film might be The Fountain. Darren Aronofsky. Yeah, I think The Fountain by Darren Aronofsky would be my favorite. Good question, Sploodle.
Brian asked if they give you an auto tool changer.
I was wondering what this was. Is this what this is? Is this a tool changer? Yeah, I've actually, I hope Tormach's not watching. I've had this for like 3 months now, and I just have not had the time to hook it up. I have a special plan for the video for this. It's going to be a bit more involved, and it's going to take a bit of time to do, but I have this, and I just have not had a time to hook it up yet. But yeah, wait for that. The next, I'm excited to get this hooked up.
Okay, from Camden. Do you like the community that's been developing more rapidly in recent years? Have you considered hosting an event or have any advice for events organizing in scarce combat zone?
Ooh, wow. So Camden asked a very big question about the community. I'm assuming you're talking about combat robots. Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about combat robots. I'll answer the one question. Have I ever considered hosting an event? No, I haven't, only because hosting an event is complicated. For those of you that might not know of SparkFun's AVC, previous to AVC doing combat robots, AVC used to just be the autonomous vehicle competition. I was heavily involved with that. I wrote all the rules. I actually hosted the event and did a lot of the coordination. I was one of the project managers for that project, and I am really not interested in doing event stuff again. Events are very, very complicated to do, and unfortunately, you can only do the event or you can compete. You can't really do both successfully. So for right now, I like building. If I ever get bored of building, I definitely will want to go more into the event hosting. But you also asked, been developing. I really do like the community. There's certain aspects of the community that I do not like. I don't know how much I want to go into that. I think a lot of people are not willing to learn. They just want to take a robot, put it in a thing and fight it, not realizing that that's not necessarily the best part of it. The best part of the hobby is coming up with an idea, executing the idea, and then getting to realize it. I don't think just buying something and fighting it is what's fun about combat robots. And any advice for events organizing in scarce combat zones? Talk to David Small. David Small has been doing a really great job creating a grassroots movement in Arizona. Shout out to ARC, Arizona Robots Club, and David Small Robotics. Talk to him if you want any advice to starting up a club. He is actually starting up something in Arizona. Start small, start with insect class robots, and then take it from there.
We have 2 questions about lathes.
If
you use a lathe and what brand you use, and somebody asked if you have a Tormach lathe.
Okay, so question about lathes. Someone asked if I have one, what I use. Let me pick up the camera here. This is what I have. This thing actually gets really warm. Whoop, whoop. So here is my lathe. It is okay. This is a, it's a Harbor Freight. I want to say this is a 9x20. I think this is also the Grizzly G4000 9x20. It's, you know, the same kind of thing. It's okay. As with everything, if you follow my channel at all, guess where I picked that up? Craigslist. I picked this up on Craigslist for like $400, I think, and it came with a bunch of tooling. It's an okay lathe. There's a reason why I do a lot of mill turning and stuff like that on the Tormach, because it's just okay. It's a little sloppy and has some wobble. I'm also not very good at using lathe. I do not have the Tormach lathe. I really, really want one, but I don't necessarily have a reason to get one right now. I don't do a lot of parts that would end up on a lathe, but of course I want the Tormach lathe. And I don't think, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any real competition to the Tormach lathe, because it's like $10,000, $15,000 all in. I don't think there's anything else you can get in that price range that even comes close to that. So yeah, the Tormach's pretty cool, but that's all I have right now, because I don't use it that much.
Sploodle wants to know if we've watched Robot Wars and what's our favorite bot. I said we like Spinner.
Yeah. We have watched Robot Wars. I've watched every single episode of Robot Wars.
Huh? I like Carbide.
Carbide's cool. I mean, they're all the best robots in the world. I'm having a hard time. I mean, Apollo's really good, but Eruption. I really like Eruption. The problem I have with Robot Wars, though, is Eruption's really great, right? Eruption's good. Behemoth is great. These are all great robots. I don't know how these would fare if you took Bronco and threw it in there, or took Last Rites in there. I just don't really know. Them compared to themselves is very different than them compared to all the other robots. But Eruption's fantastic. I think Eruption would be my favorite. And if anyone knows me, I hate flippers. I don't hate flippers. I hate wedges. Flippers are okay. I kind of like damage stuff, but that's just me. The Eruption's fantastic. Their drive is really good. They're very tactical. And yeah, I'd say Eruption. That'd probably be my favorite.
Shout out to King of Bots, too.
Oh, King of Bots?
Well,
shout out to King of Bots?
I don't think many people may know that.
Oh, okay.
We just finished watching that.
Yeah, I'm going to try and get my wife to post a link. If you go into my watch later, you can find it. King of Bots is also another really good one. I really liked watching King of Bots. So for anyone looking for more robotic combat, waiting for ABC's season 3 to come out, I'm going to try and get my wife to post a video for King of Bots. King of Bots is a Chinese competition that has a lot of US competitors in it, and that's actually really good. I like a lot of the guys from that competition too.
It's the first one. It's hard to tell.
Oh. So I just saw both Eric and Jason said that Automate CNC has lathes for sub $20,000. If either of you guys want to comment, I'm kind of curious, post a link or something like that. I'd be curious to look at the Automate CNCs. Is Automate CNC Smithy, is that what those are? Are those the Smithy brand lathes? Because if so, the early version of the Smithy CNC machine was really, really nice. That was a really nice machine.
Sweet, but unsweet iced tea.
Unsweetened iced tea. My wife, sweet iced tea. Me, unsweet plain iced tea.
Uncle Stillskin, what's your second favorite movie, and why is it Big Hero 6?
Oh my God, second favorite movie. Well, of course it's Big Hero 6. I don't know. What would that be?
The corollary would be,
Spirited Away.
No, the other robot movie. The one that you like.
The other robot movie, the one that I like. Oh, Iron Giant? Iron Giant. I like Iron Giant. I don't know if it would be my number 2. I like Iron Giant. If we're going, like, you just got me on an animated kick. If we're going with animated movie, Spirited Away.
That's mine.
I'm gonna go Spirited Away over Princess Mononoke.
All right.
Preference.
Brian asks, how about just the rotary option for your mill from Cowan?
Yeah, so officially speaking, Brian was asking about the rotary option for the Tormach. Officially speaking, Tormach does not have a rotary fourth axis for this yet. I don't know when they're going to come out with it, but I mean, you could throw on any rotary fourth axis. It just would be less elegant. That's something I'm really thinking about, because if I did that, I would be able to do gears and stuff like that. I'd be able to do a lot more complicated stuff. I'm a beginner, mostly just like you guys. I'm still trying to learn this stuff. I've never really done anything with fourth axis. I've definitely watched a lot of videos and know how it works. I know Jason, if you're still on there, Jason Hughes, I know you've done a lot with fourth axis stuff. I think you have. Yeah, I'm just not quite there yet. Most of my projects are based on a need. So once I'm like, I need to have this, then I go out and learn the thing and buy the parts necessary. But I haven't yet needed a fourth axis. So. Oh,
Wally. Asked Wally.
Wally's good too. Wally's really good, but I prefer Spirited Away. I don't know. There's something about Miyazaki I like better.
More questions about your day job and stuff. I'll answer that in
Okay.
the chat. Blue asks, do you play any video games or too busy with other things? If so, what's your favorite game?
Oh, good question. So Sploodle asked about video games, if I play video games, what my favorite video games is, if I do have time to play video games. I don't really play video games anymore. I kind of used to, but yeah, just don't really have the time. I'd rather be out here in the shop answering questions for all of you lovely folks. I'd say favorite all-time video game. Ooh, that is tough. That's a tough question. Pick a genre. You pick a genre and I'll tell you my favorite video game. Broad genre.
Cutter asked if you have a VR headset.
Oh, I don't. I don't have, someone's going to prove me wrong here. Asked if I had a VR headset. I don't actually do a lot of like toys or tech type stuff. I think VR headsets are really cool, but I don't typically have something like that unless I have a real reason for it. So I've looked at them, I've kind of researched them, I've almost toyed with the idea of getting one. I just don't have a VR headset. I just don't really have a reason to get one yet. So no.
People are saying point and click adventure or RPG maybe favorites in that genre.
So point and click, I'm gonna have to go with Diablo 2 for point and click, only because I think it's kind of more of a time in my life. That was kind of like when I was in college. Something about Diablo 2 I just absolutely love. I know it's kind of an old game now. Yeah, am I missing a game that you would suggest? Oh, Fallout. Fallout 3. Yeah, role-playing, playing the role of a Fallout man.
You're playing the role?
The Fallout man. Oh, I forgot I'm on camera. Yeah, I'd say, Fallout, Diablo, if we're going that genre. Yeah. But fun fact, my wife and I, before, I guess, several years ago, we actually used to do a lot more photography, and we used to do a lot more kind of exploring and whatnot. And for the Fallout games, we actually, when New Vegas came out, we actually did go to New Vegas and went to a lot of those abandoned sites out in Vegas. So that was kind of cool. We went to New Vegas, Las Vegas.
Jonas asks, how was your first combat robot?
How was my first?
I'm not sure.
So Jonas, you asked, how was your first combat robot? Do you want to rephrase that? Yeah, rephrase that. What do you?
You could talk about your first competition with your first robot.
Okay, so we'll see what Jonas has, but my first combat robot was Sergeant Cuddles. That is my very first ever. It was a slightly different variation of this. Let me know what kind of questions you had about this specifically.
He asked about sandbox video games, which I don't know what that is.
I have no idea what sandbox video games are, so you're gonna have to explain.
Is that like Minecraft? I feel very old.
I feel pretty old too. Fun fact, I actually did do I did a video through SparkFun when Raspberry Pi kind of came out. We used it to play Minecraft, and they made fun of Minecraft, and I got a lot of negative comments about that because I was like, oh, it looks like the graphics really didn't load properly, and is this all the game is? And I made fun of Minecraft, and that was not a good idea. So don't make fun of Minecraft.
Squirtle says, ever played Gmod? They do a thing where we make robots in Gmod and fight them in tournaments. So apparently there's a combat robot.
Let me look up Gmod. I think I know what that is.
Jonathan is asking your birthday. I'm worried he's trying to steal your identity.
Oh, you know my birthday, so just don't get my social out.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never messed with Gmod. I don't really know what that. I think it. So Sploodle, you're asking about Gmod. Is that what I see on Reddit all the time? I see a lot of people posting fights and stuff like that on the BattleBots subreddit. Is that what that is? Oh, Gary's mods. Yeah. So for Camden and Sploodle, yeah, Minecraft, sandbox games, Gary's mods, that's not, I've never really messed with any of that. I'm kind of more download, play game, get bored, do something else.
I think we're up to date. Sandbox is Minecraft.
Yeah, I saw that.
Or Halloween Day almost.
Oh, Robot Arena 2, yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
That would be cool if it was more popular in games and toys. Just promote the sport.
Oh yeah, I know I saw on Reddit like a week ago, there's a new app or game coming out that looks a lot better than Robot Arena. RoboCraft, is that the new one that I'm thinking of? I'm not really up on this, and you guys are just making me seem really old. What is RoboCraft? Maybe is it RoboCraft? I don't think that's the one I was thinking of. No.
What are your top 3 passions other than combat robots?
My wife, and my wife.
Do you need me to leave the room? One at a time.
Yeah, so Camden is asking top 3 passions other than combat robots. That's a hard question. CNC, I wouldn't really be in there. I mean, like making in general, man, that's a tough one. You gotta help me out with this. Like, I think photography would be somewhere in there. So my wife is saying product development. I actually really do like in the design phase of any project I have, whether it's combat robots or something like that, I really like starting with an idea and trying to figure out how to implement it. I don't know if this is exactly what you're asking, but the thing I like about combat robots is the development, is trying to take something from an idea and actually make it function. So product development is a really big one for me. I really actually do like photography. I haven't really done much of it lately. The obvious passion, music. Some of you might have seen, I don't do many videos with it, but I actually got into making and got into CNC for audio. I was actually building amplifiers and whatnot, and audio is definitely a big kind of focus for me. If you watch the Sonos video, you can see kind of a little snippet of my living room setup. But yeah, I'm a bit of an audiophile, and we really into music, so that's kind of a passion. So I'd say, yeah, audiophile, photography, and product development. How about those for 3?
Have you ever used your robot to clear your drive, so your snow plow?
Oh, I wish. I don't think it's going to snow again this season. Was that Brian that asked that?
That was Jason Hughes.
Oh, Jason. Oh, Jason asked that. Yeah, I haven't. If you're referring to the wheelchair robot that's right under here, it just never really worked. it was more just trying to, play with linear actuators and stuff. I never really used it to clear the drive. We also kind of have a big drive. I think we could fit like, what, 8 cars in our drive at least. So it's kind of a big drive. It's not really practical to sit out there and do it. We actually don't have to clear our drive, so we don't shovel very often. I would be really curious to get crippling depression with the undercutter to clear it. We could probably get a lot of the ice and snow gone, but I think we'd chip the hell out of the driveway too.
I think you'd kill someone.
We'd kill someone. So.
This is an interesting question. CHD returns asks, what is the dullest fight you've ever watched? Wedge on wedge.
Yeah,
The Minds kids at Robo Games.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of dull fights. I would say wedge on wedge can be okay. We're talking about the dullest fights I've ever seen. The plastic ants can sometimes take the cake for the dullest fights. I'm on the fence. I want to do a plastic ant because I want to do something crazy. So originally I had the idea of taking the weapon blade from Kamikaze. I can actually do this in ABS or nylon or something. And I have a design where I have inserts that go on the outside that are also plastic. And I keep everything else with Kamikaze the same. I would like to bring that into the plastic ants kind of category to show that you can really do some damage and you can do something crazy. But a lot of plastic ants are generally just like that for 3 minutes. So yeah, that.
But it's for kids.
It's for kids, and I'm never gonna diss anyone that gets the time and puts together a robot, goes to a competition, puts it in the arena. That right there is the best fight that ever exists. If you take an idea, take the time, take the passion, and put a robot in the arena, that's the best robot that exists at that second because you took the time to do it.
Do you have a favorite CAD software?
Yeah. So that's come up a few times. My favorite CAD software is SolidWorks. My favorite CAD software to recommend is Fusion 360. And the only reason that I don't use Fusion 360 is I am so familiar with SolidWorks. Every time I try and do something in Fusion 360, it takes so much extra time to do for me because I'm familiar with SolidWorks. I've been using it for over a decade. So I recommend new people to use Fusion 360, but I prefer SolidWorks personally.
Jonas asks, what are your top 3 YouTube channels that you like?
Oh man,
that's a good question.
That's a great question. So Jonah asked top 3 YouTube channels. I'm gonna move this back. It's a difficult one to ask, but I'd say John Saunders, NYC CNC. I like his content because I learn a lot from his channel. I've learned most of my machining from John, so I've got to throw out his channel. If Jason Hughes is still on, Jason Hughes' channel, I actually really do like Jason Hughes' channel. I've used his channel quite a bit. The mill turning stuff like that. That's a good channel. Oh, see you, John. I just saw that John was leaving. Thanks for coming. Let me look at my subscriptions. I'm gonna see what other channels here. I'm just gonna.
He asked the next electronics.
Next what?
Arduino or Raspberry Pi product.
Oh, so John asked the next project that I'll be working on. I think I have a kind of a special project. I wasn't going to announce it yet, but my wife has a drafting table that the top lifts up and down on, and I'm going to do something with some linear actuators and a RoboClaw and try and use like the encoder feedback on that so that we can dial the position just right. So I'm gonna be doing something a little bit like that. It's a little bit more, elementary Arduino stuff, no programming or anything like that. But that's gonna be one project I'm gonna do. I also want to replicate the project I did with the ESP8266 with the if this then that integration. I want to have just kind of one button plays to start music in various rooms. So look for those videos in the next month or so. Yeah, I'm looking at my channels right now. So NYC CNC. Another one that I really like is Thomas Sandladerer.
Oh, somebody mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, I really like this guy's. I don't know how to say it. Sandalandler. So there's, yeah, this guy's really cool. I like him because the videos are polished. Obviously, I like, high quality videos. The quality of his videos are fantastic. Lots of good information. So huge shout out to this guy. He's got 137,000 subscribers, but I feel like that's almost criminally undersubscribed. I'm amazed that this isn't one of the biggest channels on YouTube. I really like this guy. So he's another good one. Let me look. For woodworking, I really like Jay Bates. If anyone knows Jay Bates, I really like his videos for woodworking. So I don't only watch YouTube for, educational videos. I hate to say it, but one of my favorite channels, non-educational, is Doug DeMuro. He does all the car reviews, and I don't know what it is about that guy. The audio is crappy, the shots are crappy, he doesn't care if stuff's focused, he's just churning out content. But there's something really interesting from like a product development standpoint for me of just watching all the weird decisions that car makers make. So I stupidly really like Doug DeMuro. Favorite channel, we're forgetting, Frank.
Frank Howard.
Frank Howarth. Frank makes. Absolutely love his channel.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, when I started doing YouTube, my whole goal was to copy what Frank was doing and do that in machining and electronics. And no, there's no way. I am not going to spend like a month making every video to keep up with his quality and to do what he does. You guys would get like a video a quarter if I did that. So I'm not going to do that. But yeah, Frank Howarth, just straight up one of my top favorite channels, and I don't do woodworking. So I think that's like four, maybe like 4 or 5. Yeah.
No love for SketchUp?
I'm going to just go out and say it. I really hate SketchUp. I'm not trying to be like hipster or, say like, oh, this is better. I don't know why I hate SketchUp. I just don't like it. I think one of the big issues that I have with SketchUp is when I do stuff, I do a lot of complex assemblies, and maybe SketchUp has changed, but with crippling depression and Cuddles even, every single part down to the screws and the shims are modeled in that assembly, all the motors, everything. SketchUp really doesn't elegantly do complex assemblies like that, especially moving parts. So I can't really use it for that. And I don't think that they have a really good like CAM plugin either. So for me, my purposes are a little different. And I don't do SketchUp.
Oh, it's for architecture.
Yeah. I've played with it a little bit. Like, I think when the LED workshop light video, if they go this way, the workshop light video, I actually started modeling the garage in SketchUp because it kind of makes more sense for that. But I ended up doing it in SolidWorks anyway because I didn't want to learn SketchUp from scratch again. So for that stuff, it is very good. But for like assemblies and mechanical and anything I'm going to end up machining, it's SolidWorks all day. Yeah, Captain Christian. I do like Captain. He came out 2 new videos recently.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Let's see. Someone else likes Doug.
Car throttle.
Why do you think the insect events and other robotic events at Robo Games generally aren't filmed?
I'm speculating here. Someone asked, who was it that asked that?
CHD Returns.
See you, David Small. CHD Returns said, why do I feel that the insect things aren't filmed? It's unfortunate. It's poor planning, poor event management, and Robo Games, from what I've heard, and David Calkins, they just don't care about insects. If they could do away with insects, they would. It's just they only do them because people want to do them, and insects is tough. As someone that's built insect classes and a 30-pounder just recently, once you build a 30 or a 60 or 120, forget a little bit about insect classes. Insect classes like isn't as cool because it is different. Like I fought crippling depression and then a week or two later fought Sergeant Cuddles, and it is, to say the least, underwhelming to go from a 30-pound to a 1-pound. So I think that's the thing, is once you kind of get into the heavyweights and get into the big ones, it's really hard to like the insects class as much as you want it. I think everyone should start out with the insect classes to kind of get an idea of how it goes. But I think that's kind of the reason, is once you get into those big classes, it's really easy to ignore those small classes. But I really think insect is still fun, and it's a good prototyping to try different ideas, and it's oftentimes a lot more creative because it's just a lot cheaper to build something.
Sploodle asks, a bit of a weird question, but what phone do you have?
Oh, Sploodle? Sploodle's really just kind of throwing out some interesting stuff. So my phone is a Pixel 2. This is the first time I've ever had a modern, like current model phone. I typically buy like last year's or 2 years old to get it cheap. But I have a Google Pixel 2 and absolutely love it. The big thing that I like about the Pixel 2 is me being a bit of a video or photography snob. I would use my main camera, it's up there. I would use my main camera for all like thumbnails or product pictures, things like that. And it was kind of a pain to get it out of the cage and take a photo and then put it back. So with the Pixel, I actually use it for all my thumbnails and like just kind of quickie like Facebook posts and stuff. It's got a really, really good camera on it, and it's not a flashy or sexy phone, but it just works really well. And Google Fi is awesome. So that's my phone.
Casey says, "Hey Robert, let's run 60s at ABC."
Yeah, Casey. No. Casey, we're going to do full kinetic energy 60s. Come on. Full 60s. Not like, broken, crippled 60s, full 60s.
Yeah, we missed a question about, I forget how far back it was. Anything about robotics that's not destructive, like any other projects?
Oh.
Destruction based?
Yeah, so someone asked a while back about, I don't think someone asked about non-destructive robotic stuff. I'm definitely going to get back into it. I'm going to take a pretty big break from combat robots for a while until ABC, and I might actually be very secretive about version 3 of crippling depression, so you might not actually see anything until the actual competition. But I mentioned earlier I was going to mess with linear actuators a little bit. I still want to motorize, okay, this thing's all locked. I still want to motorize my camera stand, and I'm going to do a little bit more with 3D printers, so yeah. So I don't know, I'm talking to Casey right now. I don't like the idea of, I don't know, maybe people will do it, but I don't like the idea of non-kinetic energy, non-sportsman 60s. Like, that's a lot of money to plunk down on a robot that is only ever really going to compete at AVC, or maybe can be a flipper Robo Games. But dude, a flipper, 60-pound flipper, is just going to get its ass handed to it at Robo Games. So I don't know.
Jonas and Brian seem to be asking, are you going to make these streams regular?
Yeah, so Jonas and Brian asking if the stream's going to be regular. This is actually really cool. I thought it was going to be a ghost town. I thought it was just going to be crickets. I had actually planned to clean up the shop. As you can see, it's really messy for me right now. I've got to get all the chips out of the tarmac. I was just planning on like going around and picking up this whole time for the last 2 hours, but I have not left this location. I haven't picked up a single tool. So yeah, I think these are going to be pretty regular. This has been pretty neat. So I don't know how the scheduling is going to look like, but I know the webcam works. I know kind of how the streaming works now. So I don't know, maybe I'll do one of these like once a month, something like that. And it's actually a lot less time consuming to do one of these than to film a video. So, because filming a video, I'm at least like 10, 20 hours worth of time. So this is a lot easier.
We'll film like next time.
Yeah.
Crippling depression version 3 is a brush bot. Call it. That I would like to see.
I would love to see. Let's see. I could just do like, here we go, like that.
Yeah.
There you go, crippling depression V3. You saw it here first. Well, I did want to, since this is going to be archived, I'm going to do a kind of tear down eventually, but I wanted to at least give you guys kind of a preview of what crippling depression looks like right now. This is just kind of post-fight, so give you an idea of how much damage there is. Let's see here. So here is crippling depression. This is the back, so we're seeing kind of the least amount of damage. Internally, really nothing to take note of. There's really nothing internally to worry about. Everything still drives good. The front, however, has seen better days. Let's see if that focuses. So there's the front, and here's a fun one. So that ain't supposed to be like that. So yeah, definitely some wear. You can maybe see that this kind of bends a little bit. This is knocked out. So the outside frame, inside plate, so much. No. Yeah.
Yeah, Brian said that might help with the stream.
Yeah, so Brian was asking about the stream quality and whatnot.
Yeah, because it's like saying a lot right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So, hello from Spain. So the quality issue I'm going to have to figure out. The garage is kind of detached from the house a little bit through kind of a mudroom thing, and we don't really have any Ethernet out here, and there's no good way to run Ethernet out here. So my laser and my mill and all these other things are like on either home plug adapters, which is like power line adapters, or they're on Wi-Fi access points. So there's really not good internet out here, but I might run like, I don't know, 50 or 100-foot cable out from the garage into here. That might actually help out just for temporary for the streams. But if I do a stream again, I will do a stream again. I will do a lapel mic and hardwired Ethernet. That might help a lot.
Do you have any sides or impact?
Yeah. So Brian was asking about impact from the sides. So one thing that I didn't really realize, let me kind of shoot down here.
We lost.
So Brian was asking about side impacts. A lot of impact was done on the front. The sides are actually not that bad. So I'm less worried about the sides and more worried about this seam right here. So I think what I'm going to do in the new version is this face will actually come and wrap all the way around, and so the seam will actually be back here. And so I think if I have a nice big wraparound, that would actually help me out. So that's kind of what I'm planning for the next version. But I don't want to give away too many secrets on this.
CHD Returns asks, what's your favorite tool? Power tool, regular, or unconventional?
Good.
This is duct tape.
Favorite tool. As I said, my favorite tool is just my little basic Bosch driver here. That is my absolute favorite tool. I use it constantly. Beyond that, I really like, I'll just kind of give you a few tools that I really like. Another tool that I just absolutely love is my primary Hawk. This is actually FX9. I really love working with this. Oh,
It's been getting buggier. That's just your logo.
I wonder if the time ended.
Aw,
It says it's broadcasting.
it's just the logo. Uh-oh.
Is it dead?
Oh, I have something that's froze a little. Yeah, maybe we need Ethernet on this, because it's kind of crap. You're back now.
Am I back?
Yeah, very pixely.
Pixel. Yeah, well, it's 3:30, so.
Oh,
Yeah, wow.
we want to do a last call. Questions or?
So yeah, I'm looking. So every time you, okay. So I'm going to stop moving the webcam. Okay. So I'll stop moving the webcam. I'm sorry. Favorite tools, Bosch driver, just because it's handy, it's easy to use, and it just fits great. It's a great little tool. Hako 9X, FX951 soldering station. I'm trying to think of other tools. You know, shout out to the laser. I actually really like having a laser. Laser, I wouldn't necessarily, spend a ton of money if you don't have one and don't need one, but it's really cool just to cut out something like all of these pieces that I made. I actually just cut them out of cardboard to test the whole layout and the patterns first, and it takes like 10 seconds. 3D printing is going to take hours, but in like 10 seconds, I can cut out of cardboard and just kind of lay it out and see how it fits. So I actually really, really like having a laser, and I use it constantly.
Jonas asked what music do you listen to? Casey says only robot music. Music made by robots.
Only
robots.
for robots. Music, I listen to a little bit of everything. I mean, I know a lot of people say that, but I mean, anything from EDM, dubstep, hard bass, to rock, indie, female vocalists, whatever. I think the only kinds of music I don't really like, I'm not really into country and pop. I don't really like pop. I don't understand what the kids are listening to these days. So those are probably the only types of music I don't like, but really, really big into percussion, really big into bass, and anything kind of along those lines. But, my favorite music is very different than that. Like my favorite song ever, Oh Comely, Neutral Milk Hotel. Go figure. Yep, and favorite band, Mars Volta. So how's that for contrast?
Run the Jewels.
Run the Jewels. Gotta love Run the Jewels too. Gopnik. DJ Gopnik.
Let's see. I think we got the main questions here. We want to do a last call. You seem like you might be running out of gas, huh?
Yeah, it's been real. It's been like 3 hours, 2.5 hours now. So if anyone has any last minute questions, I will be doing these regular. This was actually really, really cool. So thank you to everyone for attending. Yay! If you have any last minute questions, throw them out there. I'll answer. And yeah.
Lithium Logica asks, do you have any other bots planned for the future, different weight class? This
Yeah.
is like one of the most common questions.
Yeah. So lithium, I answered this one previously. I don't have any really specific plans right now. I will be building a beetle weight sometime in the future. I haven't won anything in the beetle weight class. I am going to build a beetle weight at some point, and then I'm going to go up against Casey. I think that would be amazing. Casey, we're going head to head. I want to build a heavyweight, just no plans right now. Ooh, ELP, yeah.
Ooh, fun fact. Jonas, good question. When was he last drunk? He doesn't get drunk.
Yeah, good question, Jonas. I have never been drunk, ever. So, yeah, how about that?
It doesn't work.
No, I don't like alcohol. I don't really ever drink alcohol, and it doesn't really seem to do the thing that's supposed to do. So, yeah, do not drink. 75 grams? Oh my God.
Oh,
Does that
Lord.
even move?
Is it just a toothbrush with like a tiny knife on
No,
it?
it's 2 wheels, a radio, and a toothpick. And you just try and impale the other guy with a little toothpick. I can't even imagine that. That's insanity. Oh, KFC bots. If Casey's still around, KFC bots. Oh, he is though.
He said, I'll bring the KFC.
So Casey, I got to ask you, when are we gonna be able to see the KFC fights? And you gonna tell us how you did? No. Casey.
Never.
That's just fun.
Yeah.
Something finger looking good.
Aww.
I don't want to talk about it. Clash bots. Aw. Poor Casey. Wait. That's KFC bots.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Casey, I thought you're moving today. Aren't you moving today? What are you doing? What are you doing on my live stream? You're supposed to be moving today. Also, did you get kicked out of Casa Bonita?
Oh, megabots.
All
That's
right.
an awkward topic.
I'm going to be transparent and be real. I thought megabots was a joke. I get it. It's hard. It's complicated. But that was a joke. I did not like that. 2-staged. Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like it.
Overproduced. It made my insides sad.
Overproduced, under-engineered. Yep, I did not like megabots.
Casey doesn't want to talk about anything.
You never want to talk about anything. What are you, the room? I don't want to talk about it.
I did not.
I did not. I did not compete. I did not hit him. The close at 10. Oh, wow. That's saying a lot. Megabots is like KFC bots. Wow. Megabots now with less chicken.
Oh, we never got an answer for the googly eyes.
Oh, the googly eyes.
Too much weight.
Yeah, actually with this design, reason I didn't do googly eyes, self-right is easy, and if you put the googly eyes on it, it's done if it flips over. So unfortunately, they're not as tactical on this version. So no googly eyes for this version of Crippling or Sergeant Cuddles.
You want to sign her off?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to call it a day. Thank you, everyone. We will do more of these. Thanks to all the wonderful countries of the world that participated. Thanks to Kim for answering questions. And Zephyr, who is somewhere down there.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks you, everyone. If you have any questions, save them for next time. I'll post on Facebook when the next one of these will be. So thanks for watching. Where's my mouse? How do I stop this?